There are so many great resources and tools in Verbum, but sometimes what we need is actually a Word document that we prepared, class notes, or a public domain book, or maybe a book summary that you put together. Well, the good news is in Verbum, we can import that information into Verbum and integrate it into our study with a tool called Personal Books. And that's what I'd like to show you in this video. Here I have already a couple books that I have prepared. The first one I wanted to show you is just a very simple one. It's a class syllabus from a course that I taught last year called The Spirituality of the Book of Revelation. And if I scroll down here, you can see the information that I had in the course syllabus. And notice here in the other bibliography section how there is a reference to Revelation chapters 1 to 5. And when I hover my mouse over that, Verbum pulls that text up. This is something that Verbum did automatically for me. I didn't have to do any special formatting there in this personal book. Let me show you a little bit more advanced personal book just to show you where we're going with this. This is called the Dead Sea Scrolls Internet Links Index. It's an index that I made of all of the publicly available images of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And here we can see on the left, I want you to notice this table of contents. Right? This is something that Verbum created when I imported the document. And it works just like any other table of contents. I can turn it on or off and expand or collapse these sections. And also we have here in this personal book lots of links. So here's a link to an internet website where I can see the image of 1Q Isaiah A. But also I have a link here to a Verbum resource where I can actually open up this Dead Sea Scroll and look through it. So let's have a look at how we create a personal book and some of the features that this has. To do so, I prepared a document here that I'm working on called Early Christians on Mary as New Eve, where I've been collecting some of the texts from the early church fathers that speak about Mary as New Eve. It was one of the favorite ways of the church fathers to speak about Mary. And I put here in this text, you can see I put references to the Virgin Mary in blue, and I put references to Eve in red. Oftentimes the fathers are contrasting back and forth Eve and Mary. And it's usually in the context of references to Jesus as the new Adam. And so references to Christ references to Adam are in bold here, and references to Christ are in bold and spiritual. So all of this helps me to see more easily the contrast that each one of these early Christian authors is making. I also included here some hyperlinks and to Logos, the resources in my Logos library, and I'll show you how to add these in just a moment. I also want you to notice here the table of contents. Here in Microsoft Word, you have the option to view a table of contents. Here on the View tab, you can turn on and off the navigation pane. But what this is showing me are simply heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3. And in your personal books, whenever you use heading 1, heading 2, or heading 3, and so on, down the list, Verbum will automatically create a table of contents for you based on that. So here, if I navigate to 4th century, you can see that this is heading 1, and St. Jerome and St. Ephrem and so on are heading 2. Okay. Now, I'm just finishing this document up, and I have my reference here to a text from St. Irenaeus from the 3rd book of Against Heresies. And I found this text here in Verbum. I want to show you here it's in the ancient or ante-Nicene Fathers. And it's this text that says, "And thus also it was that the knot of Eve's disobedience was loosed by the obedience of Mary. For what the Virgin Eve had bound fast through unbelief, this did the Virgin Mary set free through faith." So I'd like to be able to create a hyperlink to this Verbum resource in my personal book. How can I do that? Well, simply find the place that you want to link to and go up to the 3 dots in the upper right hand of the panel menu and choose Copy Location As. And normally you're going to want to choose URL. This will create a URL that I can then go back to my Word document and I just select the text that I want to hyperlink, and I can right click on this and choose the option here, Link. This will open up a dialog box where I can then simply paste this reference and click OK. Now I have a hyperlink that I can open directly from the Word document if I like, but when I import it in as a personal book, it will be active then in Verbum. So let's go ahead and create this personal book. To create the personal book, go to Tools, and I'm just going to search here for Personal. Here it is under Utilities, Personal Books. I can open this up. You can see the 3 different personal books that I've already created. And to add a new personal book, simply go to Add Book. And here I can fill in the information. Titles, for example, Early Christians on Mary as New Eve. I can put here an author, Church Fathers. Select the type of book, whether it's a Bible or something else. Here it would just be monograph. The language. This can be important for Verbum to be able to recognize the scriptural references correctly. I can add a description if I like. And then here, down below, there's an option to add file. So I want to choose this and choose my Word document. Now the document that you import has to have the extension docx. So if you are using Microsoft Word, be sure to save it as docx, which is the default. If you're using a different word processor, simply make sure that you can export it as a docx file. So I add that, and I can also add an icon. Here, there's the option to add an icon. I'm going to go ahead and use a picture from my Verbum library, the Annunciation by Fra Angelico, as the icon. You can see here in the upper left, there is an image of Eve leaving the Garden of Eden, and now Mary receiving the Annunciation. Very appropriate. Finally, click on this Build Book option, and Verbum will go ahead and create your personal book. You can see here now it's done very quickly. I can click on Finished here, and it's appeared here on the right. And as I scroll down here, you can see that references, for example, here to Luke 1:38 were automatically added as a scriptural reference. Here to Genesis 3:15. And I have my table of contents if I expand the sidebar. With the heading 1 is the first level, heading 2 is the second level, and so on. Down below, the colors have been respected. I've got my image here from Fra Angelico. And I also have all these hyperlinks that I added, including the one that I just added here below to Against Heresies by St. Irenaeus. Now notice when I hover over this link to the dialogue with Trypho, there's actually 2 different resources that are being presented. Let me show you what's going on there. If I click on this, it opens up one of the resources, the dialogue of Justin with Trypho. And if I click here on Parallel Resource Sets, I can see that I have a couple different translations of this resource. And Verbum is presenting me here in this link with both my top 2 translations here that I have available to give me a preview of that. So that's what's going on there. And this is done all automatically. All I have to do is add the hyperlink to one of those resources, and Verbum notices that this is a milestone where there's also another translation available and shows me that in the pop-up. So very useful. Now if I update this document and I want to then re-import it, I simply need to come over here in Personal Books to Edit, hover over the book, click Edit, and then I need to make modifications to my Word document. And if it's still in the same place, I can simply pick the option Build Book again, and Verbum will recreate that. If I've moved it to another location, simply hover over the document location, right-click and choose Delete, and then re-add the book. And that will work great for you. There's a final option here, and that is the option to upload. I can choose to upload this personal book now to Verbum's servers in the cloud. And if I install Verbum on a new PC, it will simply automatically download with all of the tagging that I've already done on this resource. So that can be really useful to not have to recreate every time you install Verbum all of your personal books. So I invite you to think about what are some of the personal books that you might like to create, right? Whether it be class notes or public domain works or anything else that you think you might want to import into your Verbum library. This can be a great tool to integrate in your study, not only the books that you've purchased through Verbum, but also your own resources and really make your study fruitful.